Now for the right atrium. First let us see about the external features of the right atrium. This is the sternocostal surface of the heart. So you can see right end of the sternocostal surface of the heart is contributed by right atrium. This is right auricle. This is right auricle, and this is the SVC draining into the right atrium at its upper end, and this is IVC draining into the right atrium at its lower end. So IVC orifice, SVC orifice, right atrium and right auricle. It is separated from the right ventricle in the sternocostal surface by the anterior part of the coronary sulcus. This will be lodging right coronary artery and small cardiac vein. When I turn the specimen, you can see the right atrium is contributing to the base of the heart. This is the base of the heart. Right 1/3 of the base of the heart is formed by right atrium and left 2/3 is formed by the left atrium. It is separated from the left atrium by a faint interatrial groove and separated from the posterior part of the right ventricle, which is contributing to the diaphragmatic surface of the heart, by posterior part of the coronary sulcus, and this also will be lodging the same right coronary artery and small cardiac vein. So right atrium separated from the right ventricle between the base and the diaphragmatic surface of the heart by posterior part of the coronary sulcus, lodging the right coronary artery and small cardiac vein. IVC orifice, SVC orifice. So on the right surface of the heart, between the SVC orifice and IVC orifice, there is a faint groove. This groove is called as sulcus terminalis. This groove is embryologically and clinically important because the cranial end of the groove close to the root of SVC will be containing SA node, which is a pacemaker of the heart. Corresponding to this groove on the inside, there will be a linear ridge-like elevation called as crista terminalis. So this crista terminalis demarcates embryologically two different sources of origin of right atrium. Anterior to the crista terminalis and sulcus terminalis, this portion of the right atrium, which is forming the anterior wall, is derived from the right half of the primitive atrium. Whereas posterior to the sulcus terminalis, that posterior half of the right atrium is a smooth part, and that is derived from the absorbed right horn of sinus venosus. So sulcus terminalis between the IVC orifice, SVC orifice, right auricle, right atrium. Now we shall move into the internal features of the right atrium. Cut distal just posterior to sulcus terminalis, and we are reflecting the right atrium anterior wall on the left side. So overlying the sulcus terminalis on the inside, if you see, there is a linear muscular ridge. This is called as crista terminalis. From the crista terminalis, numerous longitudinal ridges will be running, converging towards tricuspid orifice. This is tricuspid orifice connecting the right atrium with the right ventricle. So these musculi pectinati or longitudinal ridges extending from crista terminalis running in the anterior wall of right atrium will be converging towards the tricuspid orifice. So this is the anterior wall of the right atrium. This rough anterior half of the right atrium is embryologically derived from right half of the primitive atrial chamber. This is the right auricle, what you are seeing here on the interior. This is also derived from the right half of the primitive atrium. The applied significance is because of its rough wall, the blood when it is passing through the right auricle may get thrombolized because of the erosion, because of the rough elevations in the surface. There will be impedance to the flow of blood leading to thrombus formation, and that thrombus may block the heart or any of the blood vessels of the heart. So that is applied significance of auricle. Now we are going to see the posterior wall of the right atrium. The posterior wall of right atrium contains a sausage shaped depression, the intraatrial septal wall. This depression is called as fossa ovalis. This fossa ovalis is embryologically a remnant of septum primum. Overlying it is a sickle-shaped thickening. The anterior, superior and posterior walls will be elevated, whereas inferior wall will not be elevated. This sickle-shaped elevation is called as limbus fossa ovalis, And this is the embryological remnant of septum secundum. Remember, this is septum primum derivative called as fossa ovalis. This elevation is called as limbus fossa ovalis, and this is derived from septum secundum. When you take the anterior elevation of the limbus fossa ovalis, it will be continuous with the valve of IVC. IVC orifice is opened here. This is actually the IVC orifice. So they have cut open the IVC orifice, and you are seeing the valve of IVC orifice. This is the valve of IVC orifice. So you can see the limbus fossa ovalis anterior margin is continuous with the valve of IVC orifice, and this valve of IVC orifice is called as eustachian valve. So this will allow the blood entering through the IVC to enter into the fossa ovalis or foramen ovale during embryonic life to reach the left atrium, because during embryonic life IVC will be conveying oxygenated blood through the ductus venosus. So the blood conveyed by the IVC will not go into the tricuspid valve guarded by this valve of IVC. So it will enter through foramen ovale into the left atrium. Okay. Now this is the tricuspid orifice connecting the right atrium to right ventricle. Between the tricuspid orifice and IVC orifice is the opening of coronary sinus. This coronary sinus opening is guarded by another valve. This valve is called as Thebesian valve. The role of this valve is the coronary sinus is conducting deoxygenated blood. So this valve will prevent the deoxygenated blood conveyed by coronary sinus to reach the right intraatrial septum, but it will go only towards the tricuspid orifice. So remember, there are two valves in the orifices of right atrium. One is IVC orifice, another one is coronary sinus orifice. Coronary sinus orifice is guarded by Thebesian valve on its right side, which prevents the flow of blood from the coronary sinus into the intraatrial septum, but only into the tricuspid orifice. The IVC orifice is guarded by eustachian valve on its left side. The role of this valve is to prevent the IVC blood to go into the tricuspid orifice during embryonic life, but through the foramen ovale into the left atrium. The other opening is SVC orifice in the upper part. This will not be guarded by any valve. Below the SVC orifice, there is a small elevation called as intravenous tubercle. The role of this intravenous tubercle is to prevent the flow of SVC, blood conveyed by SVC, to reach the intraatrial septum, but to go towards the tricuspid orifice, this small elevation. So this will prevent the blood conveyed by right atrium by SVC into the right atrium to go towards the tricuspid orifice, but not into the intraatrial septum through the foramen ovale present during embryonic life. So remember, rough anterior part, smooth posterior part, and intraatrial septum, three walls. Rough anterior wall is derived from primitive atrial chamber. It contains crista terminalis and musculae pectinate converging towards the tricuspid orifice. The smooth posterior part is derived from the absorbed horns of sinus venosus. The intraatrial septal wall contains fossa ovalis and limbus fossa ovalis. The anterior wall of limbus fossa ovalis will be continuous with the IVC valve. Between the IVC valve and tricuspid valve will be the valve of coronary sinus and its opening. Below the SVC orifice is a small intravenous tubercle which prevents the SVC blood from entering into the fossa ovalis but towards the tricuspid orifice. This is about right atrium internal features and external features. This is again interior of the right atrium where the IVC and SVC orifices are clearly visible. This upper forceps is in the SVC orifice. You can see there is no valve guarding it. The lower forceps is in the IVC orifice. You can see the IVC orifice clearly, and this is the valve of the IVC orifice. This valve. This is the eustachian valve of IVC orifice. This valve, as you can see, will be continuous with the anterior margin of limbus fossa ovalis and fossa ovalis. This is fossa ovalis. This is IVC orifice guarded by eustachian valve. This is coronary sinus orifice. This is guarded by Thebesian valve. Coronary sinus orifice guarded by Thebesian valve. IVC orifice guarded by eustachian valve. This is limbus fossa ovalis. This is fossa ovalis. This is SVC orifice. Okay.